exterior repaint, windows. As we're approaching the front, we can start identifying the doors and something like this. Let's say we want to get these exterior lights as a component. We have the two exterior lights, we can get a good shot, and then we can take a snapshot of these components. And something like this, and now we have inspection photo that we can attach to our report for that component.
So that's what's going through the brain of a reserve analyst, right? So they're looking at that information, and this is kind of what the process looks like. So we identify the reserve study components. That's actually really hard, because we're trying to collect all the collateral, maintenance matrices, CC&Rs, declarations. What is owner versus non-owner responsibility? How many times do you get into a situation where people don't know, right? Or when you have intake forms and people are complaining about something that's not even the responsibility of the association. So that was a really big one there. And then we plotted the components via a GPS there. And then, Wes, if you want to talk about the other steps in terms with the inspectors, right?
Yeah. So kind of, obviously this is where we really come into this process. And so what was nice is when Damien brought this to us, we had several conversations. We said, what's it going to look like? How's this going to feel? What are we going to do, right? Then we took it to our internal team, and we have several key staff members on the team who have property management experience. One of them you probably met, Christina Barkley, reserve study experience, longtime property manager, VP of a management company, and she's obviously in the back there. But it was interesting sitting down with them and hearing, okay, what have they experienced from a reserve study? Not a living reserve study, but just the reserve study side in general. So we kind of went through that whole entire process with this, and we came up with the idea that all the equipment we already have can absolutely be used for this. And so as I mentioned, we've got the car with 360 degree, we have the camera that goes on the head mounted unit, and we have lots of accessories that can go with this camera. So there's areas where you can't, as a person, you would have to get on the ladder and you gotta go look at something. We don't need to do that. We can use an accessory and go out somewhere high, like you wanna go look in the rafters, you wanna go look somewhere like that. We can do all of that with our equipment and capture 360 degrees in every corner of a building, inside vents, like you could do anywhere you want, we could do that. So in each time you get a comprehensive 360 degree video. We then upload those videos to our software, but one of the things that we've just rolled out is a point of interest system. So the point of interest system and why it's so important is we can actually plot the common area elements on the map and attach the videos to those common area elements. So now when your manager goes into basically to that community in our software, they can look at the point of interest system, click on the point of interest, and then the video will be there for them to look at. So they get this 360 degree video right there. To Damien's point, that's the value, right? When you have a manager who transitions to a new community, you have to bring a new manager into that property. What if there was no training? What if they didn't have to go to the site? What if at their first board meeting, they had already looked at every common area component for that community? They knew where your riser room was at, they knew where your irrigation controller was at, they knew exactly how to get to it, they knew all the context clues around it. If it's in the ground, right? They could have that 360 degree video saying, well, I know there was a post here and a sign here and it's right here somewhere, right? All of that stuff cuts down on the time that it brings, that it requires your manager to get up to date. So not only does this living reserve study add the value of the reserve study side, but and Damien's going to touch on this in a minute, but the fact of being able to retain managers, the fact of being able to train managers quicker, the fact that you're going to be more knowledgeable about that property than any other management company who's not using this, because if they switch management companies, all of a sudden, that person has no idea where any of that stuff is at. You have detailed this because you've been working with them on it. And so that's a little bit about our process. The other thing is it's nice with our system because as long as we sit down and have a kind of this kickoff meeting with the manager, we open up the map, we do a Teams meeting, we look at the map, we look at the components. I think my team's got a pretty good amount of experience with properties at this point. Like I can see the property boundaries. We can look at it and say, hey, I can see you've got a playground over here. That's clearly a common area, a park, whatever it is. And so we help the manager, even if they're not super familiar, we can say, what about this area? What about this area? We get maps from them, we plot all these points. And then once we have those points plotted, we send our drivers up there. Everything is GPS enabled, so my driver just goes out and knows where to walk. And we're training our drivers to now understand what we want to capture when we go out and do this, right? It's not just go out there and stand in front of the sign. We're going to go out there and do an inspection on a monument. We're going to walk the entire way around that monument. You're going to get all four sides and everything around that area. So for us, it becomes a very simple process once we've had that kickoff meeting and those points are plotted. Now my drivers just go and do the quick inspection. And the last thing I'll leave with is, in our pilot program, we did 2 communities, one very large, one smaller. We were able to do both communities in about, we started at 11 a.m. that morning and we finished by 3:30. We had captured every single common area component, ponds, clubhouses, pool decks, tennis courts, all that, 5 hours. And these communities were not close to each other. So that means the one community we did in about an hour and a half, the other one took us maybe, 2 hours, and it was much larger. But every single component was documented in 5 hours max. So when we talk about speed, that's where that comes in. And the second piece is if you were to take someone right now and go out and take a picture of every square inch of the tennis court, how long is it gonna take them to do that? My inspector could walk that tennis court in like a zigzag pattern, capture the entire tennis court in seconds, move on. If you were gonna go take a picture of every component in your kitchen or your common area, right? Like, you're gonna be out there for hours taking pictures of every component. What if I just walk by it real quick, and then we can stop the video and take pictures anytime we want? We can look at any piece of it. If we forget something, go back to the video and get it later. Like, so, all of a sudden, capturing these common elements is minutes versus days or hours. And the other piece is, we're already in a lot of these markets. We're already doing a lot of your communities for the clients we're working with, even if we're not working with you. If we're in that market, something we could absolutely do for you. And so, huge value there, cutting time, labor costs, all that out of the equation. So that's kind of how we kind of help in this process. We're kind of those boots on the ground.